Welcome back, everybody. We are 4 months almost on the nose away from midterm elections, and many Americans still just have a lot of questions about election integrity. But one of those states who is trying to fix some of those issues is Arizona. So we are delighted to bring in Arizona's Attorney General Mark Brnovich. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Amanda, for having me, John. Good seeing you.
You as well.
We're happy to have you, and I wanted to get your reaction to this DOJ lawsuit that was filed to basically block Arizona's new House bill that's requiring proof of citizenship to vote, which seems like a very reasonable measure to me.
Well, it's a very common sense measure. I mean, it should be the policy of every government everywhere that only citizens can vote in their elections. And so it's head scratching and puzzling to someone like me, knowing what's happened in the past. We want to make sure everyone has integrity or confidence in the electoral process. And so while the Biden administration's Department of Justice literally is letting people, millions of people, illegally enter our country, now they want to tell Arizona that you can't enact common sense measures to make sure only citizens vote in your elections. So it's absolutely crazy. And I've told folks that, you don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. And the fact that the Biden administration and the Department of Justice is willing to let millions of people illegally enter our country, willing to let millions, drugs, pounds of drugs and fentanyl, come into our country, and yet they want to sue Arizona just because we have a statute that says only citizens can vote in our elections, and you have to show proof of citizenship to vote in a presidential election or to vote by mail. Seems like common sense, but I think the Biden administration obviously has a far left radical agenda.
Yeah, and I was here back in 1996 when Bill Clinton signed into law a law that says you can only be a citizen to vote in federal elections. Now the Justice Department is taking away the mechanism to make sure you comply with that law. How can that be? How can they take away the tool to make sure you're in compliance with that 96 law?
Well, look, John, I'm going to do everything I can to uphold the Constitution, as I've done throughout my legal career. And, just last year, Brnovich v. DNC, right, the lefty group sue Arizona. I went into court, U.S. Supreme Court, argued the case personally, and we won that case. And one of the things, one of my proud moments as a litigator, was when one of the justices, the DNC, the Democratic lawyers were all saying that, well, we don't need these voter integrity laws. Where's the proof of the ballot harvesting can harm an election? And literally in 2004, there was a bipartisan commission that said ballot harvesting is one of the greatest threats to election integrity, and we need to make sure we do everything we can to prevent third parties from handling ballots. Jimmy Carter was the co-author of that report. So there's a lot of hypocrisy on the left where, 20 years ago, even the left, the Democrats understood the need for election integrity and for everyone to have confidence in the process. But now they are intentionally trying to undermine or demonize anyone that stands up for election integrity.
And Attorney General, your state has tried to do a lot to shore up the integrity of your own elections. But I wonder if we had an Arizonan call into the program and ask you, Mr. Attorney General, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in the integrity of elections going into midterms? What would your answer be?
Well, look, there's a lot of chaos in a lot of other states. I am confident. As long as I'm AG, we're going to do everything we can to ensure the integrity, and whether it's going to the Supreme Court and arguing Brnovich v. DNC. We were 6 for 6. People forget this, that when they tried to extend the ballot curing period in Arizona, I went to federal court and stopped them. We didn't have that in Pennsylvania. That's why you saw, all sorts of chaos or votes being counted after a certain time period. We made sure that when the county recorder tried to send mail-in ballots to everyone, whether they requested them or not, I went into court on a Friday afternoon and stopped him from doing so. So I'm going to do everything I can to ensure the integrity of the process. But, we've got 20 active criminal cases. Last month, we have our second successful prosecution, which is the first time in Arizona's history in Yuma County for prosecuting people for ballot harvesting. So, look, the left has a lot of time and they have a lot of resources, and they've done a lot of things when it comes to the media, when it comes to academia. So they control a lot. They set a narrative. We saw how they killed the Hunter Biden story, how social media has manipulated us. And so there are things the left is actively doing. But when it comes to, trying to prevent, I'm out there prosecuting people for ballot harvesting, making sure that only people that are supposed to get ballots are getting the ballots. So I'm doing everything I can. But obviously, the process isn't perfect. And one of the things, Amanda, that I didn't identify in an interim report, which I got criticized for, is this last election, up to 200,000 ballots did not have a proper chain of custody. Now, people can draw their own conclusions from that. I'm not a policymaker, but that is one area where I've said we have to have a chain of custody. And when it comes to these remote voting locations, they have to be monitored, and you have to have actual people there or 24-hour surveillance to make sure there's no shenanigans.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And that report was an important one. It brought a lot to light, and I think summarized it really well. I want to pivot to something that the Supreme Court did on its last day. The U.S. Supreme Court, on its final day, accepted a case for next year. It's the North Carolina reapportionment case. But really, at its heart, it's a decision about, does the legislature really have the power the Constitution says it has to set the rules for elections? How important is that case? And might you be a participant in that case as a friend of the court brief?
Well, Article 1 of the Constitution provides that states are responsible for setting the time, place, and manner of elections. And we actually did join an amicus brief, the effort to urge the court to hear this case, because it is important. This is one of the things the left does, is they will take over offices and then they won't defend the laws. And we've seen this in the past with lefty administrations and with the Obama administration and environmental groups where you have these sue and settle issues. And so it's important that the legislature or someone is there to defend the laws of the legislature. And, that's what the legislature has a right to do, and it is an important case. And that's why we joined the amicus effort urging the U.S. Supreme Court to hear that case.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Attorney General, I know going into this election for everyone, not just in border states, but all 50 states, immigration is going to be at very, very close to the top of the list. For Arizonans, what are their biggest concerns with respect to immigration? Obviously, we have this flood of illegals coming across the border, but you have the human trafficking aspect, of course, the drug, weapons trafficking aspect of that. For Arizonans, what specifically, what piece of that crisis is top on their list?
This election is going to be all about security, economic security and border security. Because, look, I'm a first-generation American. I understand why people want to immigrate to the United States. But the very reason I want to be here is because this is the land of opportunity and the rule of law means something. And what the Biden administration has done is systematically undermine the rule of law. And it's why I've had to sue him so many times. Our lawyers, our law office, were the ones in federal court stopping Joe Biden from rescinding Title 42. I personally argued at the U.S. Supreme Court when Joe Biden tried to rescind the public charge rule. We've sued President Biden over his failure to build the wall. We know that when it came to the interim and then permanent guidance, Joe Biden doesn't want to deport people, deportation orders. So they have systematically incentivized and decriminalized people breaking the law and coming over here, very undermining the rule of law and why people want to come here. And the reality is this isn't now just a Joe Biden problem. This is a generational problem because you have millions of people coming into the country illegally. It's taxing our hospitals, our social services, our safety net, our social welfare programs. And meanwhile, people are being put up in hotels and flown all over the country, released into our communities. And at the same time, you have a record amount of fentanyl coming in. And, 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be fatal. So just to put that in context, we lose sight of this stuff, but just last month, enough fentanyl was seized on our southern border to kill the entire population of Arizona. We know last year, 100,000 Americans died of fentanyl and drug overdoses. So people are dying here. And it's a result of the failed policies of the Biden administration.
It's extraordinary.
Attorney General, very quickly before we go, we got about 20 seconds left. We saw the election of Mayra Flores. She flipped a blue seat red. That was in the Rio Grande Valley along the border in a legal Hispanic community. Do you expect to see that happening this November on the border of Arizona?
Well, I hope so. I think when we have candidates, Arizonans, that can stand up and articulate Arizona values, we win. And that's why it's important because candidates do matter.
Attorney General Mark Brnovich, we appreciate you joining us. We'll have you back on very soon. And Democrats